Snow fell softly on the quiet streets of Toronto, painting the city in a blanket of white. It was one of those evenings when everyone hurried home, gloves tight, faces buried in scarves, hearts eager for warmth. But not everyone had a home to go to. At the corner of Queen Street, near a small bakery that smelled of cinnamon and hope, a woman sat on the cold pavement with a little boy beside her. His tiny hands were tucked into a worn-out jacket, his eyes tired yet innocent. They didn't beg, they just sat quietly, watching people pass by. Michael, a 42-year-old engineer, was on his way home after a long day. His mind was filled with work emails, deadlines, and the thought of the warm dinner waiting at home. But as he passed the bakery, he heard a small, trembling voice. "We haven't eaten in 2 days." The little boy's words weren't loud, but they pierced through the noise of the street and into Michael's heart. He stopped walking, his feet refusing to move forward. Something in that child's voice reminded him of his own son, Ethan, who was the same age. He turned around and looked at the pair sitting by the wall. The mother's face was pale, her lips dry, her eyes filled with shame more than sadness. She quickly pulled her boy closer, whispering, "Don't say that, Liam." But the boy looked up at Michael with those wide, pleading eyes. Michael knelt down slowly. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "What's your name?" "Liam," the boy replied. "My mom says we'll be okay soon." Michael glanced at the mother. She was trying to smile, but it broke halfway. "We're fine, really," she said, voice trembling. "Just waiting for a little help to come through." Michael looked at her worn coat, the frost clinging to her hair, and the way she hid her hands, red and raw from the cold. He could tell, help wasn't coming anytime soon. Without another word, he stood up and walked into the bakery. The warmth hit him instantly, the smell of fresh bread, cookies, and coffee. He ordered everything he could carry, sandwiches, hot chocolate, pastries. When he returned, the mother looked startled. "Please, you don't have to," but Michael simply smiled. "No one should be hungry tonight." He handed the bag to Liam first. The boy's eyes lit up like Christmas lights as he took the sandwich and began eating hungrily. His mother watched, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't even know your name." "Michael," he said quietly. "And you don't have to thank me. I just couldn't walk away." They sat together for a while, a stranger and a small, struggling family, under the soft glow of a streetlight. The mother's name was Sarah. She had lost her job 2 months ago when the company she worked for closed. Her husband had left shortly after, unable to handle the pressure. Since then, she'd been living in temporary shelters, trying to find work and feed her son. "Every day I tell him things will get better," she said, voice cracking. "But lately, I don't know if I still believe that." Michael listened quietly, the cold forgotten. Something about Sarah's story hit him deeply. His own life hadn't always been easy. Years ago, before his career took off, he had struggled too, sleeping in his car for weeks after losing everything in a bad investment. But someone had helped him then, a stranger who gave him a job and believed in him when no one else did. Now, he realized, it was his turn to do the same. "Sarah," he said gently, "I run a small design firm downtown. We could use someone organized. You'd have to start part-time, but it's steady work." She stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Michael said. "Come by tomorrow. We'll get you settled." Her lips quivered as she tried to form words, but only tears came. Liam, unaware of the full weight of the moment, grinned and said, "Mom, see. I told you we'd be okay soon." The next morning, Sarah showed up at Michael's office, nervous but determined. Within weeks, she became one of the most reliable people on his team. She worked hard, saved up, and slowly began rebuilding her life. Liam started school again, full of laughter and stories about his new friend Michael. And every Friday, without fail, Michael would take them both to that same bakery. They would sit by the window, watching the snow, talking about everything and nothing. Months later, on a bright spring day, Sarah walked into Michael's office holding an envelope. "I wanted to return this," she said, placing a small folded note on his desk. Inside was $20, the exact amount he had spent on their first meal that night. You don't have to, he said. You and Liam already paid me back 100 times over. She smiled. No, Michael, you reminded me that kindness still exists in this world. And I'll spend the rest of my life passing that forward. That evening, as Michael watched them walk away, hand in hand, stronger, hopeful, he thought about how one small choice had changed 3 lives. Sometimes, the world doesn't need more heroes, it just needs people who refuse to walk away. And on that snowy night months ago, when a little boy said, "We haven't eaten in 2 days," Michael chose to stop, and in doing so, he gave them not just food, but faith again.